moving on. Hank is in for sales, and he and I have worked on some environmental cases in the past, and truly he is extremely knowledgeable on P&Z law, so we're really fortunate to have him here as a resource to field some of the questions and offer some insights. My name's Mark Morgan. I'm an attorney in Danville, Kentucky, and I used to work with Fitz, Tom Fitzgerald, actually known as Fitz, and actually we co-counsel on some things with Hank. But I know a lot of you, and the first thing I want to do, I've been talking to Amy. I know you're from Nelson County. Joy, what county?
Woodford.
Woodford? Okay. Okay. Well, his wife's a lot nicer in Delaware. And you're from?
Madison. My friend Richie here is from Rockcastle.
Okay.
I'm his mom.
Okay, you're Rishi's mom and Rockcastle. You're from Fayette. Okay. And I know Leah Baines is from Boyle with me, and a wonderful person. Tremendously important. Tom and I have been talking, and Tom's from Whitesburg, and helping the Sierra Club get going up there. Is that right? A little bit, yeah. We'll keep it going. Yeah, keep it going. And I don't know if I know you guys.
I'm Doug Dorr from Round County, working with the KFC chapter in Round County. We trying to oppose the Kingdom Water Pipeline.
Good. And
Claudia Haynes, Volume Kentucky, Sierra Club, and Kentuckians for
good for you. Good for you. And I heard you speak earlier. I like what you had to say. You guys are really well organized.
Well, this is on account of Doug Littlefield, too.
You're far too kind.
Well, that brings up an important point, and that is that, as I was alluding to earlier, I want to start with a little story. Hank probably knows, maybe some of you all know, Bruce Smith, an attorney in Nicholasville, in Destin Town. He does planning and zoning law, and he's actually the attorney for our Planning and Zoning Commission in Boyle County. And Bruce is a very good person and very smart, knows law very well, always well prepared. And he had advised our Planning and Zoning Commission that Boyle County could not take any action with regards to hazardous waste pipelines if Kinder Morgan gets to repurpose, which it looks like with FERC's action or inaction, that they're going to be able to do that. And Bruce advised our P&Z that our P&Z was preempted by federal law and by state law.
What's P&Z?
He's our planning and zoning attorney. He's a paid attorney
Okay.
from Nicholasville who advises our Boyle County planning and zoning. And one reason they wanted him, A, he's very knowledgeable, and B, he doesn't have as many conflicts as some of the people in town would have, and he's a good attorney. But he did reach that conclusion. And Sarah Volkamp, who some of you all know, I know Leah knows her very well, is a retired librarian, very senior, has no authority to speak. And she was in the meeting when Bruce advised, Sarah had moved and some others had moved our planning and zoning to take action on this hazardous liquid pipeline. And Bruce had advised our planning and zoning that they couldn't take action because federal law preempted the field and state law preempted the field. And real quickly, under a balance of powers, under states' rights and federal law, if the federal government acts and occupies a field, then local government or state government can't act. They're preempted. So that's basically what Bruce was saying. And some of us had been meeting, and she came back and shared that, and she just wouldn't leave the room. She was very polite, but and our planning and zoning chairperson is a retired principal, and he teaches driving to school when you get a ticket, okay? He's a real authoritarian guy. He's just super authoritarian, just like a principal. And he was So what they finally did to shut up this polite retired senior citizen female who really are true power brokers in our world. We don't know it, we better learn it quick. And she just politely wouldn't touch. And they said, okay, and we'll table this until the next meeting. So at the next meeting, I talked to Fitz extensively. We got a position paper together. I got up to snuff as much as I'm capable of being up to snuff. And I called Bruce in advance of the meeting. Hey, it's a good tactic. Always break things down to a personal relationship, professional, transparent, honest, decent relationship. And talked to Bruce about it. And after I talked to Bruce, he said, let me look some things. So he said, let me go back some books. And to his credit, unlike most successful attorneys, he swallowed his ego and he said, I'm really glad you guys are right. And I was wrong. And I said, don't ever say you're wrong. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. What matters is we want to work with you. And he said, well, I want to work with you. So before the next meeting, he had called the chair of P&Z, who really didn't want it on his plate. He wanted to rule only on straightforward zone changes from developers, up or down. That's his job. Don't put anything else on my plate. And because we went through Bruce, then it went through perfectly. And in the meantime, another tactic, there's no rocket science to what I'm telling you.
How did she know? How did this lady know?
Because she talked to Fitz and me a little bit before, and we said, no, there is a way for local P&Z to do this. And she said, I trust them, and they said that, and that's the way it is. And
So
she
what did
didn't-
he find?
Huh?
What did he find?
Well, we're gonna tell you.
Oh, is it Bill?
There are life lessons here. The takeaway from this life lesson is personal relationships, respect, dogmatic approaches, being open, and giving people an easy out.
Yeah.
And to be your ally instead of your enemy is the takeaway of the story. So in a nutshell, before the next meeting, another thing that Sarah and some others, Jim Porter, some others, and I did, was we talked to the P&Z members, commissioners, in advance of the meeting so we could advise them. So we didn't spring things on people and we didn't embarrass their attorney, and we invited them to talk to their attorney so they could see their attorney was working with us. And at the end of the year wrap up in 2015, I was at City Commission Fiscal Court when the chair of P&Z reported on the major accomplishments of P&Z in Boyle County, and number one was the Boyle County P&Z ordinance. They couldn't be prouder of it now, when they were absolutely publicly opposed, never going to happen, so on and so forth. So, all right, this talk's going to be broken up into two parts. The first part's going to be about, it's going to kind of be, if you've got P&Z, this is an ordinance that we're finding successful, I'm going to explain why, and then we'll do it up so you guys can interact, because you all have your own thoughts. And then the second part, I have seen it, there's an 18-minute film from an attorney who was going to be here but was unable to be here, and he is Tim Tyson, I think, and he is going to advise us on, if you don't have P&Z and you need P&Z in your county, which is a lot of us in this room, here's his advice on how to get P&Z. And I think Hank would be a real good resource on that too. So I'm going to kind of get through my part real quick. Hey, Joan, I'm going to need, okay, there's a bunch of handouts, and you might want to get them now or at the end. This one is from Tim Tyson, how to contact him. These are my business cards. They're the most important handout. This one is very important. This is something that Fitz put together, and it's very good. We've all relied upon it as a working paper, and it cuts into everything we're going to cover in more detail than we're going to cover today. This next one, called an ordinance, and it's about Perryville and Boyle County. And basically, it is the working draft of our ordinance before we got it signed. This one is just a background paper, mainly Fitz's work on the Utica Marcellus Texas Pipeline project. This one is the final version that went through our fiscal court. And keep in mind, and again, Hank can be a resource on this, after our P&Z acted, we took the ordinance. When the P&Z, the actual vote we got from P&Z was to recommend that the city of Danville, through their city commission, the city of Perryville, through their city commission, the county of Boyle, through their fiscal court, adopt this ordinance on recommendation of our planning and zoning commission and a unanimous vote of our planning and zoning commission. So this is the county and the county ordinance where they adopted it, so you can see how it looks. And this is the Madison County ordinance, and I don't have the second one. I'm gonna put it, if you sign your name and your email, I'll give you a link through an email to it, so it'll be an attachment to an email. Madison County passed two ordinances. One is just like the Boyle County ordinance on the hazardous liquids pipeline, and two is one dealing with compressors. So they approached it in two ways. Okay, so before you leave, grab some of these and leave me your email, and I'll send them to you so they're in digital form so you can reproduce them equally if you choose.
In most counties, is planning and zoning countywide? In other words, it's city and county, or in some areas there's two separate?
But yes, most. But in Boyle County, we have a small community called Junction City, and they opted out.
Oh.
So they do not have it. And real quick, I want to talk a little bit about preemption. And this is going to be kind of general in the interest of time, and we can come back to this in a more open discussion. FERC regulates natural gas pipelines. FERC does not regulate natural gas liquids, hazardous liquids pipelines. Okay? NGLs are generally not fuel. They're not natural gas. They're natural gas liquids. They are a hazardous liquid. Our Public Service Commission doesn't regulate natural gas pipelines. They regulate other public purposes, but this is a private company, which our ordinance deals with private companies, for-profit corporations seeking to transmit hazardous liquids, not publicly needed public corporations transmitting fuels or something like that. So in our ordinance, when you go through it, you'll see that we spent, the first thing we did, Fitz and Bruce Smith and I called on Preston Miles, a chemistry professor at Center, Charles Ferguson, a retired metallurgist. We put together a legal paper, which is what is over here, and we had a hearing, a publicly noticed hearing at our RECC that was widely attended, and we invited people from all over the county, and we had public input, but mostly we presented testimony. And the reason for doing that is we wanted to create a written record, and we recorded this. We had a court recorder, and we videoed it also, and we created a written record. And Hank's familiar with P&Z litigation. We wanted to show, assuming we prepared everything in anticipation of litigation, that we had a basis for what we were doing, and concluding there's not preemption, there's no federal or state regulatory involvement, and also that there's a need based on Preston Miles, Dr. Miles, went into a couple of things that most of you know, and I'm going to cover these real quickly. NGLs are under pressure. As long as they're under pressure, they remain liquid. When they're liquid, they transmit through the pipeline. The pipeline doesn't have more pressure, theoretically, than the natural gas that went through the pipeline before. Assume that's true, and I assume that's true. There's a pressure limit on the pipeline. Think start thinking about the difference in a liquid and a gas. If you have a container of natural gas, it weighs the weight of the container, basically. If you have a container of liquid, water, milk, whatever, and it's a gallon, it's gonna weigh about 8.5 pounds. The container may be a negligible amount. The point is, liquids at the same pressure as gas, liquids weigh more. So gravity forces them down more. And when you move an empty milk bottle full of gas, it doesn't keep vibrating. When you move something full of liquid, it keeps sloshing around. It vibrates more. When this pipeline was built in World War II, there was not a requirement to separate the rocks from the soil. So the rocks had migrated, we assume, and where it's been dug up, it's shown that the rocks had migrated against the welds, against the sides of the pipe, so that you have rocks, hard surfaces, against metal, another hard surface. But over time, 70 years of vibrating with a gas, you've got one form of vibration. With a liquid, you're going to have a more intense vibration. So Preston Miles made these points. He also made the point that should there be a leak, then the pressurized MGL will change from liquid partially to gas and partially to liquid. The liquid portion can get in groundwater, it can get in surface water, it can get in our drinking supply at Lake Harrington, where the pipeline goes across the lake, etc. And it's got, at least 4 carcinogens in it, so on and so forth. Most of you know this stuff already. The gas is heavier than ambient air, unlike natural gas, which disperses, it's lighter than air, it disperses into the atmosphere. You have to have a quick ignition source to cause a natural gas explosion. It usually, when they leak, and they go in, they cause global warming, but they don't cause explosion. NGLs, the portion that turns into gas, is heavier than air. It stays, depending on the volume released, in the area, along the ground, and it's subject to an ignition source from a combustion engine, car, cell phone, etc. Everything a first responder would use to get people out of the gas. So Preston explained all this, and we also took, and this is important, this is almost a contradiction in the ordinance when you read it. We aren't really addressing safety, because there is some preemption in the source materials received. There's some preemption on safety, but there's no preemption on the other goals of planning and zoning. And all this is in, you can call it the legislative history, the whereas, the basis. We stated it carefully in our ordinance we protected to. So that at the beginning, we set this out, state and federal law and different authorities as to why we have a basis for P&Z taking action. And then we get into the actual ordinance. And what we've done is we are, an applicant shall, just cutting to the main words, an applicant shall describe all measures proposed to be taken to assure compatibility of the proposed use. We're not talking about whether it's a good idea or not. It's whether it's compatible with existing uses to come within, right? To come within planning and zoning language of proposed use of the pipeline for transportation of hazardous liquids with surrounding land uses. And this is where we're really careful, considering noise and odor. Okay, noise and odor from above ground pipeline operation, maintenance activities, pump stations, machinery, startup, shutdown activities, heat exchangers, equipment emissions, relief valves, backup power generators, and other sources of noise and odor. So again, this isn't an environmental legislation, this isn't a safety regulation, it's a planning and zoning regulation, making this land use, this proposed wastewater infrastructure. So is this use, this land use, transporting hazardous liquids through a pipeline compatible with roads? And there's gonna be a lot of increased traffic, et cetera, for maintenance vehicles, et cetera. And waters and waterways, well, it goes right over Lake Harrington, our drinking water supply, and now they're gonna take it under, and is it compatible? So we have authority, we have jurisdiction to do this. And let me drop back and punt for a second. Planning and zoning has a subcategory called the Board of Adjustments. They have their own set of members, they have their own, they do detailed, almost like a little mini trial, when they try to decide whether to allow something. Like, one thing has come before our Board of Adjustments in Boyle County, a big thing is wedding barns. Wedding barns are really hot and popping, they're big in tourism right now, it's a real, and it's real controversial, some of them, because they're in parts of the county where there's not much traffic, there's not much noise, it's peace and quiet, it's bucolic, it's agricultural, it's zoned agricultural, and now you're gonna have bands and drinking and a lot of traffic on narrow roads. So the Board of Adjustments, our Board of Adjustments, have been grappling with that issue, and to grapple with that issue, they allow something called conditional use permits, which are it's a planning and zoning operation that goes to this subset of planning and zoning, and that's what this is. This is for conditional, we put this ordinance as a conditional use permit. And so the first thing is noise and odor, the second thing is impact on roads, infrastructure, including water and wastewater infrastructure. You know, is it gonna, the pipeline goes right next to our water treatment facility. We just spent, what is it, Leah, $29.7 million redoing our water treatment system in Danville, Boyle County. This pipeline goes right next to it. We have every right, our planning and zoning, to consider the impact of having something that's arguably 150 times more explosive than natural gas going next to that. So that's why we put it in there. Proximity to industrial areas where manufacturing processes involve storage of flammable liquids and gases, toxic chemicals, explosives, or other hazardous substance that could be compromised as a result of an accident. Again, we've got a land use map, we've got a comprehensive plan, we've got an industrial zone, certain areas are zoned for agriculture, certain areas for residential, certain areas for industry. So if you've already got this pipeline goes right through our industrial park, then we have given authority to our planning and zoning Board of Adjustments to consider what would be the impact of a leak in our industrial zone where Panasonic storing material, corn, all kinds of stuff's already stored out there. So that gives people like Hank and me a horse to ride in challenging this. Proximity to institutional facilities such as schools, daycare facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, jails, and prisons, where it's difficult to evacuate masses of people when there's a cloud that first responders can't get in. This goes within feet of Hogshead Elementary in our town. We have North Point Prison. We have a regional medical center. It's the largest regional medical center east from McDowell. It serves about 7 or 8 counties. So we put those things in there.
Okay, quick question real quick. Both of those two that you just read sound like safety issues. But the way you started it out, the wording, you're using the proximity as the issue instead of safety.
Compatible with existing uses.
I got it.
So the horseshoe ride is it compatible with existing uses, or does it compromise the intent and the rights of people who already
So you never have to say it's a safety
Well,
issue,
the
but
safety comes in. It's
Is
that
there a
right?
his-
Is that right?
Yes,
Similar.
motion discretionary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Is there a history of this type of conditional permit against hazardous waste pipelines in other parts of the country, and is there a legal history?
Well,
And did you all come up with this whole
Yeah,
plot?
there,
Or
in
did you
Aurora,
have-
Colorado, something similar has been done. But other than that, we couldn't find anything. So this,
And I'm unaware, I mean, this is new to me as well.
this is some, Bruce and Fitch should get all the creative
This
chops.
is incredible.
Okay, next, proximity to public safety and emergency response facilities. And again, police, fire, EMTs, you want them to be able to operate, that's a land use. Finally, proximity to, current, or it should be forward, planned places of mass public assembly where you're gonna have large crowds. Proximity to cultural, historic, and natural resources of significance. Much of what a Danville is listed or eligible for listing on the National Trust for Historic Places, the National Register of Historic Places. Proximity to and impacts on prime or significant farmland is or bluegrass land and that's zoned agricultural. So it's all about compatible uses with these other designated uses the way we wrote it. The last thing I want to, this part up, this is what, and Hank and I have done this, something, it's called fee shifting, except we did it with expert witnesses. What we've done in that final paragraph is, I think that if there's anything really, really great about this is it. Let me just read it. The Board of Adjustment may retain the services of a consultant familiar with the transportation of hazardous liquids by pipeline to review and make recommendations to the Board of Adjustments concerning the adequacy of the measures proposed by the applicant to ensure compatibility of the use, of the pipeline for transportation of hazardous liquids with other land uses, and the applicant shall be required to make a deposit with the Board of Adjustments of the estimated costs associated with the consultant's review upon application and shall reimburse the Board for any costs exceeding the deposit. In short, if somebody, Kinder Morgan or anybody else, proposes to transmit hazardous liquids through pipes in Boyle County, the Board of Adjustments can hire, I don't care if they're in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I don't care if they're in Beijing, China, if they're the best authority on whether that's compatible with the existing land uses, the applicant we get a proposed bill from our expert, and then we give that to the applicant, and the application isn't processed until the applicant deposits that proposed, that their amount, an estimated amount of cost, and then if it exceeds that cost, when it's all said and done, then they have to pay more, or the permit's not granted. So, since we don't have any money,
Can
since,
they revoke the applicant, what I'm trying to say, can they, if there is a spill and they don't have enough money to pay for it, even after they've deposited it, can you revoke their,
I haven't communicated. This isn't about,
it's about stopping it in the first
this
place?
is about making a record. Our Board of Adjustments can't make a record of that. They've gotta have chemists, in other words, as pipeline experts, NGL experts, tell them, will this application comply with this ordinance or not? And these experts charge more money than we have. And so we put this in there, so the applicant has to put a deposit on what the expert estimates they're gonna charge. And if they don't put it down, then their application doesn't go forward.
And if it
So,
exceeds
yeah.
that, they have to pay more.
And if it exceeds that, they gotta pay it, or the application doesn't go forward. And what'll happen is, I'm sure most of you are already thinking, the applicant's gonna say, you don't need that expert, they don't know squat. So what Does it make sense to you?
It does, and I didn't expect you to attempt to ban this coming from the county.
We are banning.
And so making it, determining compatibility and requiring the conditional use permit and requiring the applicant to pay for your expert is, those are all reasonable safeguards.
I think the circuit court would support those goals. I think the appellate courts would support those goals. They might not support the decision, it's hard to say. But if we're reasonable in the application,
Yeah.
then, and one thing that, just so you all know, Kinder Morgan sent their design engineer and their director of marketing to Boyle County, Hansel, Louisville, and I don't know where else they went. They did a whistle stop. And they called Preston Knowles from Saturday County, myself, and Jody Lassler, the head of economic plant and development in our community, and met with us, met with the three of us, it was the two of them and the three of us. And their design engineer is, I'll tell you what, they are from, there's no plant here, except this thing.
Yeah, this is, Chris asked us to do, and
All right.
it's Cellus's
Well, here,
camera, so don't worry.
here's what it is. I'll tell you right now.
Transparency right here.
He is a charming guy. He was disarmingly decent, not just sugarcoating. He wasn't a salesman. He wasn't like a used car salesman. He was not condescending at all. He didn't talk down to us at all. He was straight ahead, straight through facts, didn't deny anything, didn't dodge questions. Really, an impressive guy. And at the end, and he said, to his credit, he said, they got me on this project because I've spent the last 18 years in California doing pipeline mitigation, public relations, and engineering mitigation when there's a fault or flaw. And he pretty much admitted that the reason they're coming this way from Pennsylvania to Louisiana instead of going a shorter route to the east coast of the Atlantic seaboard, which is much shorter, is because they thought they'd have more effective citizen opposition through New England, Philadelphia, New York, than they have through polite, less educated,
Good old Southern Charm.
get along people. Well, you can't fight City Hall type mentality that we're known for. And they said, we've been surprised. So, so I thought that was,
I think they learned a little bit of a lesson when they dealt with the first,
Right.
pipeline.
the Bluegrass Pipeline and
Yes,
this. and
because they did not send us that kind of a
And
person.
they didn't see it.
The people that they sent to our public meetings were dumb as sticks.
Well, this guy is not dumb, he's very honest, he's a stand-up guy, and we closed the meeting, I said, I want to tell you, I'm impressed with you, I'm impressed with your integrity and your knowledge and your honesty, and I want to tell you right now that I'm going to say something I never thought I'd say, I would like to accommodate you because I respect you as a person, but I will never do it, and if you lived here, you wouldn't do it either. And if your kids were here, you wouldn't do it either. And he said, you're right. And we agreed, and we agreed to disagree, and he went back to his world, and I went back to my world. And I thought that was really impressive. And so that's where we are.
Full, even.
They did not challenge the enactment. Nobody has,
This hadn't been passed when we met. This ordinance had not been.
after Ball County passed the ordinance, has a challenge been brought?
The only challenge has been about the compressor ordinance. They brought a challenge about the compressor ordinance, not about
That's in
the,
Madison County.
in Madison County, not about the hazardous liquid transmission.
And so that is in circuit court?
I don't know, you have to ask Fitz. Fitz is working with folks over in Madison, some of y'all from Madison may know, I don't know where that is, but, Fitz would know that. But on the hazardous liquid added some existing ordinances in the initial part, but we didn't amend the comp plan.
Okay. The,
Did that give you?
no, the Woodford County Comprehensive Plan is being updated now. And the first step, of course, is goals and objectives. And our planning commission has, the first time, I think in our history, included a warning or within the goals and objectives, a negative regarding these kinds of pipelines.
We talked about that, and I'll address that.
And right now, we're fighting over other aspects of the goals and objectives, like the urban service boundary settings.
Right, I know that.
That's this morning's lawsuit. But how we implement the text of the comp plan to go with that goal and objective, we will benefit from your all's ordinance. We may call for implementing the ordinance, but we may also include a narrative about why this is not good for Woodford County and needs to be handled very carefully, and instruct a conditional use
Yes, sir.
requirement.
Real quick, we talked about taking a position, P&D taking a position on the pipeline, banning it or something like that. And we determined we didn't have authority to do that. We would enact legislation, an ordinance that wasn't supportable, wouldn't be supported by the courts. And that's why we closely tied it to compatibility with existing approved land uses at every junction. So anyway, you can read the materials. Okay, I need to alert you guys. I've got 212 on my watch. I haven't seen Mr. Bison's presentation on how to.
I've had the opportunity to kind of play just about every role that there is in zoning in Kentucky. I'm here today to talk to you about a special, unique opportunity that can happen for counties in Kentucky. So you're going to have other people speaking to you today that are going to talk about how a zoning ordinance can be an effective tool to help you deal with pipelines that might come into your community, and how zoning is one of the things that is sort of exempted from federal law that allows the states to have some control over pipelines. Someone else is going to talk to you about how counties who already have zoning in place are able to manage and modify their zoning ordinance to address concerns that they have with regard to pipelines and those kinds of things and other kinds of environmental issues in Kentucky. So the purpose of my talk is to actually sort of help you guys understand what a county that does not have zoning yet can do in order to get zoning so that they can answer some of these problems and address some of these concerns. They can do this for this purpose. They can also do it to address a lot of other concerns that they might have in their county. So the first point I want to make to you is that if you know a county or a city that does not have zoning, that might want to have zoning, I want to make a really emphatic point to you that if a zoning ordinance can be properly drafted and if it is presented in the right way, it doesn't have to be political suicide for the elected officials who are proposing it. In other words, there are a lot of people who are concerned about raising zoning in a rural county because it is criticized and considered a excessive regulation and that kind of thing, but it doesn't have to be that. A smaller kind of rural type of county or city in Kentucky simply needs to have a zoning ordinance of the proper type. It doesn't need to have a zoning ordinance like those that are in the cities of like Lexington or Louisville or Covington. Those ordinances are hundreds of pages long. They might have as many as dozens of different zoning districts. And the complexity of an ordinance like that might be enough to distract the community from what they're trying to accomplish and might actually scare off a lot of both elected officials and citizens who might be willing to support zoning in a rural community. So what I have done in the past, by the way, in a couple of different communities now, is to draft zoning ordinances that instead of being hundreds of pages long are only tens of pages long. And zoning ordinance that instead of having dozens of different zoning districts, I drafted one that had as little as 3 different zoning it's sort of like right-sizing the zoning ordinance for the size of community that you have and at the complexity level that's appropriate. Now, a lot of people who are involved in implementing zoning in a new community is aware of the fact that there are some hot potato issues that I'll say you don't want to catch because it'll burn your hands. So the elected officials are concerned about some of these hot potatoes. I'm going to talk to you about specifically 2 of those, all right? The first example I'll talk about of a hot potato issue in a new zoning ordinance is the minimum lot size. So you might hear a lot of people talk about, okay, what's the minimum lot size? And that's considered as a violation of like landowner rights. And so you get a lot of people who advocate against zoning ordinances because of the fact that it interferes with the rights of the landowner to do what they want to with their property. Well, I'll make a point to you. A zoning ordinance in a rural county can actually be done where there is no minimum lot size requirement at all. In other words, the only requirement for a lot to be created in a county like this is where it is large enough to handle a septic system that will deal with the sanitation that is created on that site. It doesn't have to be any larger than that. Now, in some rural communities, they want to set minimum lot sizes so that they can maintain a rural look and a feel to that county, and those are fine. But if that's a hot potato issue, it's not a bad idea to implement a zoning ordinance that doesn't even have a minimum lot size requirement. The second hot potato issue I'll talk about is the concept that if we implement zoning, there might be some existing business in our community that might somehow become illegal, or the word in zoning is non-conforming, and that might restrict or limit that business and its ability to operate or to grow. One of the things that I've done is to take a specific, go through a specific effort to identify every existing business in the county and make sure that the zoning map and the zoning code is drafted so that their zoning will allow them to continue to do what they are doing. Not just because they're grandfathered in, but because they're actually a permitted use in the zone in which they operate. There's a whole lot of other examples of issues that can come up in zoning that can be a problem to implement in a new community. But again, the point I want to make to you today is that it does not have to be political suicide for an elected official in a small rural county in Kentucky to implement a zoning ordinance in order to try and address these environmental issues like pipelines and any other issues that the county may have that zoning can address. If the county proceeds with implementing a zoning ordinance, and there are actually ways to do it where you can do it without any kind of overwhelming public opposition. It can be done at a fairly reasonable cost. It can also be done reasonably quickly. A brand new zoning ordinance can actually be adopted in as early as a year from the time that the process has begun. So what I want to do is kind of spend just a few minutes kind of talking to you about the elements of what this looks like, so how you adopt the new zoning ordinance. So the first point I'll make to you is that Kentucky law strongly encourages what's called a joint planning unit, okay? And what that means is that the cities and county and any given county work together to create a planning unit for their county. The goal of that is that you have one organization that is doing the planning for all of the cities and the county within that county, and by doing that, they kind of concentrate the expertise that comes into the process. So the first thing that happens is if a county or a city is going to implement zoning, they have to send out what's called an invitation to the other cities, or if it's a city, to the county, to propose zoning in their county. That invitation has to go out. The other participants have an opportunity to accept or reject that proposal. Whether it's accepted or not, you can still go forward with the zoning ordinance, but you have to ask. If they say, yes, we want to join in with you, then you can create a joint planning unit. If they do not accept it, that's okay. The organization that is proposing the zoning can still move forward with that, okay? So the next step is, after that invitation process is implemented, then the next thing that the organization can do is actually go ahead and pass an ordinance to create a planning commission. So by creating a planning commission, you're appointing people to it, you are having meetings, you are creating minutes, and you are starting the process towards adopting a zoning ordinance. After you've got a planning commission in place, before they can adopt zoning, there's one other thing they have to do. They have to pass, well, the planning commission has to create a comprehensive plan. All right, so many of you may already know what a comprehensive plan is, but it is basically a booklet. In most counties and most communities, it's a booklet. And in that booklet, it starts out by laying out a lot of statistical information about the population and about the business activities that are happening within that county. And then there are other elements to that plan that would address what the existing infrastructure in the county is, what the transportation systems look like in the county, identifying what all of the existing land uses are, and then creating some goals and objectives is what they're called, goals and objectives of how we would want this community to grow in the future. And then the comprehensive plan actually states how we're going to go about trying to implement those goals and sort of plan the future of the community. And one of the primary tools for doing that is with the implementation of zoning ordinance. Once the comprehensive plan is done, then the next thing that is in step is to adopt a zoning ordinance. All right, so the zoning ordinance can be adopted, and it can also adopt what's called subdivision regulations, which is another set of regulations that kind of work hand in hand sometimes with a zoning ordinance in a county. In order to get, when you get to this stage, the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, most communities are going to need some sort of a consultant, some sort of expertise to help them with this. Well, if they're in a county that does not have zoning yet, they may not have people in their community already who can do that. And the reason for that is if you don't have zoning, you don't have lawyers who are up to speed on it, you may not have planning organizations, private planning organizations that are there. And so a lot of times the communities like that have to reach outside the community, the people like myself who can help them through this process, and I've done this before. Another opportunity that most communities have in that is where the area development district staff can help with that process as well. And so you've got opportunities there for bringing in expertise to get this process started. This process is always more effective, by the way, when the public is invited to participate in it, and they can actually help create what those goals and objectives are. So one of the things that is done in a lot of communities is the planning and scheduling of public meetings where your interested citizens, your business owners, your residents, all have the opportunity to come in and state things that they believe are right about where development ought to happen, where it ought not to happen, what their environmental concerns are, how to address some of those issues in a zoning ordinance. And it's really smart for a community to do as much of this in public meetings and to encourage their citizens, their stakeholders in the community to come in and participate in the process of adopting the zoning ordinance. Once the zoning ordinance is adopted, a county does have to have a zoning administrator. So you do have to have an individual who is hired by the county who administers that zoning ordinance. Now, that does add one more person to the staff, at least one more person to the staff of a small rural county. And so you got a budget issue that you got to deal with there. It can be expensive, it doesn't have to be. And the reason I say that is that in a small rural county or city, a zoning administrator does not need to have to necessarily be a full-time position. I've actually seen counties where they had an individual who was either on staff already that could do it, or would serve as the zoning administrator and also serve in other roles. One typical thing is if it's a county that has adopted the building code, the person who is the building inspector is a kind of an obvious choice sometimes to also be the zoning administrator. It's a similar kind of job, having a code and applying it to new construction, new development, that type of thing. The planning commission also will need to hire legal counsel, and that legal counsel can obviously either be some attorney from the community, or sometimes it's smart to hire an attorney from outside of the community. Now that sounds strange, but the reason for that is that when you get a planning commission and you get zoning in place, the local attorneys are going to want to be able to represent the citizens and the people who actually live in the community when they go through the zoning process. By having a lawyer who is from outside the community serve as the attorney for the planning commission, you get the benefit of the local attorneys being able to continue to represent their clients like they always have and do it in front of these administrative bodies that make these decisions. So sometimes communities end up hiring attorneys from outside the community like myself, and this has happened to me, where I've come in and initially sometimes it's intended that it'll be a short-term engagement. It turns out with Pendleton County, it's 16 years running for me now that I've been representing them. Intended initially to be temporary, turned out to be long-term because quite frankly, none of the lawyers in the community really want the job because they need to represent their existing clientele in front of the Planning Commission. There is one other board that has to be created when you have a zoning ordinance. It's called a Board of Adjustment. And that's a board that's sort of parallel to the Planning Commission, so they both operate. It makes certain decisions with regard to the zoning process that are different than the Planning Commission, but it's one more board that is created when you adopt the zoning ordinance. That board has separate minutes, separate meetings, and it's a separate appointments. It's another opportunity for citizens in your community to be involved in the process. One last note I'll make about zoning ordinances is real important for you all to know, and that is that all of the crucial zoning decisions ultimately are made by the elected officials, not the people who serve on planning commissions and board of adjustments. The reason I say that is that there's a lot of citizens who want to be able to have an elected official who is responsive to their concerns and not have some person who is viewed as an appointed official who doesn't necessarily have to answer to the electorate. The important thing for you to know is you can tell your elected officials, look, if we adopt zoning in our county or in our city, you guys maintain control over that decision making. You don't have to worry about appointing people to a planning commission and losing that control. I've done each one of these steps in the zoning process and the creation of a zoning ordinance in a county. I can provide the kind of legal and strategic advice that is kind of needed for a community to be able to achieve their ultimate goals. So if you're aware of a county or a city who does not have zoning that might be interested in implementing zoning for the purpose of addressing these kind of environmental concerns like the pipeline or any other concerns that they have going on in their community, please don't hesitate to encourage them to call me. I'm happy to follow up with them. Kind of getting to the end of my talk, and unfortunately I'm not able to take questions, obviously, because of this being videotaped, but I will tell you that my name and address and phone number, email address should all be in your materials for today, and so you can feel free to take that, and I would encourage anyone who's here and is interested in this issue or has follow-up questions to email me back, and I'd be happy to talk with them about these and handle that Q&A part of this address after the fact. I'd like to again thank everybody who organized the forum for this opportunity to speak before you today, and I encourage you all to move forward and do what you can to help improve your community and this wonderful state that we all live in.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Here's his handout. I hadn't seen that before. I thought that was very good. I thought it was straightforward.
I think he's right on whichever.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of broke down into step by step what you have to get into. Obviously, he minimized how much political goodwill and relationship work you're going to have to do and how much you're going to have to do to assuage the concerns of individuals and developers and environmental concerns and so on and so forth, rural agricultural concerns. The political hailstorm you can get involved in this, as you all know, can be large, but any good fight's worth fighting, you know, and he did break it down, but, you know, his contact information is the first handout, and then the ordinances from Madison and Boyle and some of Fitz's, some of the background materials we put together are all over there. So any questions, comments, you guys have been great, really, you know, been real attentive, especially our mushroom boy here, and I think it's really cool that he's here. It's a good reminder of why we do planning and zoning for people this age. We ain't doing it for ourselves. You know, some of us are far side of 60, and it's not about us anymore. It's about him. So that's your planning and zoning right there. That's your motivation. Any comments? Any thoughts? Feedback?
One question, Mark. So in our community, we have Lake Arrington, which is the drinking spot for Danville and much of, well, I mean, actually, it's not just Danville, Junction City, and actually, even in Washington County now, it's getting as far as
Bergen, what now?
Bergen, yeah, Mercer County.
A lot of different counties.
So, I was talking with some folks yesterday, the porters who
issued, our comprehensive plan classifies the land contiguous with Lake Harrington into different classifications. You know, residential or agricultural, whatever. But, but the lake itself, I don't think it's designated. I haven't never researched it, I don't know. But the point is the water coming from that lake is drinking water, and whether to grant an application for a zone change or a permit or not, or to deny that, takes into account the goals and objectives of our comprehensive plan, which includes preserving the quality and quantity of our drinking water supply. Does that make sense? How would you address that?
And really, it's not, I mean, I didn't ask the question well, but basically, I was just wondering if there's that private company ownership
Go ahead.
fears.
Do either one of you know, who claims ownership of the land underneath the lake?
Yes.
Is that owned by KU?
No.
Is it owned by the adjoining landowner in
Yes.
the middle of the lake?
No, it's not to the middle lake. It's 760 feet above sea level is what they call the high water mark. So KU, the answer is yes, KU owns the land under the lake, but where is the lake is confused because the lake goes up and down. So the lake, whether there's water there or not, the lake exists up to 760 feet above sea level. That's a high water mark. And even if there's water higher than that, KU doesn't own that water and KU doesn't own that land, so theoretically. Does that answer your question?
I know that in Watershed Watch, we take the position that if you're in a canoe, you're not trespassing. But if you're walking in a creek and it's not your property, you are trespassing on somebody's land. Now,
KU owns that land, below the
so
sun.
you would be trespassing on KU's land. Now, I would believe the planning commission has the authority to talk about the land use under the lake. I'm not sure they can change it. They may want to
That's true.
create a zoning district for
That's true. That's
water
true.
resources.
That's true.
My expectation is that it's ignored. You know, we discovered 10 years ago that the Woodford County Comprehensive Plan and zoning ordinance failed to notice that we were joining the Kentucky River. Basically, the Kentucky River is completely missing from the Woodford County Comprehensive Plan. Now we have a Kentucky River district in the comp plan, and it intends to guide uses along the river in ways that don't contribute pollution and runoff. But it was kind of a startling discovery that we failed to even talk about that river, okay? So I would encourage all of you to look at the comp plan, to look at the water resources and recognize the land use aspect of those resources as well as Margaret's doing, the land use aspect of pipelines.
One other thought, under Lake Harrington, and I'll bet under the Kentucky River, where Woodford, Lawrence Anderson come together, I don't know where the county line is, because out on what we call Clifton Road in Boyle County, that's where Lake Harrington is, where the pipeline, I've been there many times, the pipeline crosses on Clifton Road. You got Garrett County over here with no P&Z, planning and zoning. You got Boyle over here with planning and zoning. I know KU owns up to 760 feet above sea level, land and water, but I don't know where the county line is. It's discoverable. So I don't know where our P&Z reach ends.
And I've proceeded as though the county goes to the middle of the channel.
Until proven different.
It's a roof different, unlike in Ohio, where, as you know, we own
To the north side.
to the north side.
To the north high water mark. That's a good point though. What else? What are thoughts, feedback, anything? Make sure you grab some handouts. There's a lot more information in those than you learned the world today.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, I know in Boyle County, y'all probably aren't concerned about being directly impacted by fracking as we are in Madison, eastern
We got
counties.
oil shale. I'm pretty concerned.
You are in Madison?
We have a lot of
Did you
oil.
have people buying up leases in the last couple of years? or do you
No,
not?
not the last 4 years. We fought that fight. Hank, Fitz, myself.
Back in the seventy.
Jerry,
Surface all shell.
76, 77,
Yeah.
78, 79, 80, worked real hard on that.
Yeah.
The Anakin brothers went all right.
Thank you, yeah, I did recollect there were people who were fighting it back then too. But I was just wondering if y'all in Doyle County are having a conversation about how to use planning and zoning in regards to fracking and wastewater disposal rights.
We are not.
Okay, do you anticipate exploring that now that the way has been paved with this pipeline zoning, which is a lot more stomachable
Yeah.
for officials?
Yeah, I anticipate it. It's a matter of time. Obviously, everything I'm doing is focused on, got a lot of stuff. And, there,
And he is very good, and I'm also.
we're also working on trip meters.
Some work side by side sometimes.
There are other people that might do it. It's a great point. It needs to be done.
It needs to be done preferably before, I mean, in your case, before they're buying up new leases. In our case, before they decide to develop it. Do you know of anyone, in Kentucky who's working, I mean, I know this is talked about some, but do you know of any counties that are taking those first steps?
Thank you. No, I don't. You're right. I mean, I'm doing that. So, back to the whole thing. We're out, we got 30 acres and it's all oil
I hope that people are able to get together with time and resources to get out in front of it. And thank you so much for your work in Boyle County, which really paved the way